right. We're ready to go. Finishing up another great week. We're gonna talk a little helmet safety today, and really dive in as everybody's going into camps and stuff, and really dive right in. And I'll let Coach D intro our guest today, but it's very, very innovative product, and then some really interesting things. But just talking in general, all the stuff with always surrounding as you get into the season with concussions, everything surrounding that, how you teach tackling, how you teach the game of football. So we're going to talk a lot of those things today. So I'll let Coach D introduce our guest, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, excited. Coach Cramer, Jim Cramer, longtime high school head coach at Mount Olive, an alumni there, brought them their first state title ever, I believe, back in 2002. With a victory over one of our previous guests in Jimmy Matsakis. But he was a head coach for a really long time. Then he got into administration. So he was my VP when I was teaching at Mount Olive. His son played for me. So he's kind of worn a lot of hats moving forward. And now, kudos to him in retirement, living the best life, stays in the football world, and now works for a company by the name of Safr Sports, who's really on the cutting edge of developing your new age kind of concussion aid help in terms of, just a different product to kind of help those lower the concussions and whatnot. He can talk numbers, which are just unbelievable. So we'll let him get into more of that. But, like I said, I think it's very timely to have him on at this point, right, for us, because with all camps opening up and guys getting into, really practices when, now we start to add the equipment aspect to it. So excited to talk with him to kind of get his perspective and learn a little bit more about what they have going on.
Let's bring Coach on. Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Coach, thanks for taking the time, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Coach, if you can give a little bit of just your overall background. Derek did a great job introing you. But just your overall coaching background, how you got with Safr Sports, a little bit of that, so the audience has a good understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually attended Mount Olive High School, class of '86. Don't do the math. That makes me 56 years old. But I played at Mount Olive, came back after I graduated. Actually was a mortgage broker.
Oh, hell.
Hated it. And I ran into my high school coach at the supermarket. He's like, "Yeah, I got an opening. If you can set your hours at work, you want to help." After about 2 weeks, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I went back to school, became a teacher, spent some time as assistant coach there. Then got a great opportunity. I went to Bailey Ellard, which is a defunct school now, but it was up in Madison. And coached a couple of years there. And then I had a great opportunity to go over to Morris Knowles and coach under Billy Regan. He was on the midst of a 3 consecutive championship run, and just I got to be a couple of years right in the middle of that, and really just learned to veer. And I just kind of fell in love with the triple option and the veer offense, and just decided, if I ever get a shot, this is what I'm going to do. And opportunity to go back to Mount Olive, be a social studies teacher. I went there a couple of years being an assistant coach with Wayne Shealy there, and he left. I had a great opportunity to come back to Mount Olive, coached there for 9 years. We were very fortunate to have a good run there. We got a state championship out of it.
Yeah.
It was really great. We did not have a great window of success historically at Mount Olive. Like my team in '86 was the only team to never make the playoffs in the history of the school before we made it. We were fortunate enough to be the first team to win the state championship. Great, it was like a Disney story.
Yeah,
we had a snowstorm come in the night before, drop 8 inches of snow. Rutgers canceled their state championship. Kane University, you have sectionals in different areas. And our AD and our mayor was like, we're playing. And they took the plows off the street and they brought them over to swipe the field off.
It was wild.
And, played a really good Jefferson team. Very fortunate. Jimmy Matsakis, great coach, great guys, you guys know. And fortunate to win that night, and it was a great run. Then my son came, became an administrator. We don't let administrators coach. My son Caden started playing football. They got involved in a Mount Youth program. They've grown it to like 300 kids. Fantastic.
Huge.
I was on the board there.
It's a monster program.
Monster program. Caden played there, and then the new current coach Brian O'Connor, he got to be the head guy. He came over for some successful years in Wayne Valley. Asked me if I'd volunteer to coach, so I could get some years with Brian while Caden was there, and just a great experience. I retired. I just retired. And one of the reasons I retired maybe a hair earlier than I anticipated was to be involved with Safr. A guy, a good buddy of mine, played for the Giants, Lee Roussan. He has 2 rings with Parcells. He was one of our assistants when I was the head guy. And he hooked me up with this guy. I got to meet this guy who's got this product. And you guys know you're coaching sports. And, guys are like, hey, you want to, I'm opening a T-shirt company. I'm opening this company. I was like,
Right.
Cool, great, good, but not for me. Then I went to lunch, and the guy Ziggy took his helmet out and put it on, and I was like, "That's it. That's why I got to get involved with this. This could be the future of football." And I've been with them for about 6-8 months now, and it's been a good run, fantastic. The more I talk about the product, and the more I talk about football, and I talk to parents about it, the more I just know like this is something that's really special.
Yeah, I mean, helmet safety is obviously one of the biggest things that there is in football, and especially many years ago once that concussion movie came out, and then
that changed everything.
Yeah, and then one of like the guys who I do a podcast with, he has his own podcast, and he had on Nowitzki, the guy who does all the basically the guy who's trying to get all the the brains from the former athletes to analyze them, and so it's still at the forefront. I think one of the good things about all the things with that happened, it forced coaches and administrators and players to all try to and companies to continue to evolve how tackling worked and how helmets is like the last bastion of evolution. Like for many years,
it's
it
crazy.
is kind of crazy, but like the helmets have evolved, but they haven't changed that much to, and so you see things like the different caps that the NFL has on top of it. But what does that exactly do? I don't know. You're definitely gonna explain this all for me, which I look forward to. So, and then what you guys are doing. I took a look at the product. I think Derek mentioned it to me a little while back, and basically it has that look a little bit of who was it used to have it like that?
For the
Mark
Niners.
Kelso.
Mark, yes.
Mark Kelso. We are.
That little.
If you do, he had they used to call it the kazoo cap, right? And he made a tackle or get smashed returning a punt, and it would pop off.
Right.
If you trace the lineage of our company, it goes back through iterations to that product and that doctor. So it's been sold. So if you go in our office, we actually have the original. I have a picture on my phone. The original Mark Kelso cap. You turn it over, it says number 38 inside. I think the difference between that product and where we are now is back then it was Velcro. They put a Velcro on the helmet, put it on. So we have through the evolution and of the company, we've come up with a spring-loaded technology that now attaches it 4 points onto the shell, so now it doesn't pop off. And that's really been one of the key differences, other than some other data which we can yap about in a minute. But that evolution from Velcro to this patented spring-loaded technology to keep it on the helmet is really what's made it skyrocket.
And what is the with respect to helmets, like can you explain a little bit about like what the helmet does, and then like why we start to need extra protection, right? Because you get like there's so many arguments on different sides with respect to what helmets do and don't do, and what can be done and what can't be done, and what is fiction and what's reality. Can you explain a little bit of that?
I've learned a lot about helmets myself getting into
Right, sure.
Of course.
And a lot of things, it's just like the most basic thing from parents are like, he's a medium or he's a small. The reality is that in a lot of products, the shell is the same size. It's just a matter of padding they put inside to thicken it, right? Then there's a jump, like in the Rydell, there's a jump to a different helmet shell size, and then extra large. But basically, and I'm not disparaging or putting anything down, but like sometimes you're like, oh, it's built like the horror. I think it's called Horror's racing helmet. Like the more padding in your helmet,
Right.
the tighter it is on your face, the more support and safety it provides. It's about dispersing energy on the force of the hit. So the padding is a cushion and it might have a give, but your brain still moves. So you want to be able to take that energy that you take on a hit and throw it off and keep it from reaching into your brain. And that's really what our technology does, and some other technologies that are out there too. But we dissipate force and we remove it, so it goes shell, helmet, padding, then it gets into your head in a very simplified way of explaining it. So basically, that's it. We're protecting your head with this shell, which helps dissipate the force. And I'll show you a little bit about that if you guys want in a minute. But
yeah. And I think that's obviously with obviously the it's more in the limelight now, right? Because concussions and all that kind of stuff, right? Everybody knows about the Guardians that are out there now that are that was kind of like the first hey, look at all this stuff, and now even with the NFL now allowing those to be worn in game if necessary, right? I mean, that really just kind of brings, because all these parents, they see what goes on Sundays, they don't really know about all the technology. They kind of leave it up to the coaches to kind of, it's not like a parent. Dave, you're doing 9U, right? Like you're doing young guys. Like how many parents come in and they, hey, my son's of this size, or hey, maybe my son's this size helmet, or hey, I bought him this, right? The ability to understand, right, or kind of know equipment stuff when it comes to football, I think is what separates football. It's because you're wearing equipment that matters, right? I mean, basketball, I need good sneakers and I need a pair of shorts and a shirt, right? Like there's no equipment that is involved with it. And now we're talking about a technology that's literally been tested by some of the, in my eyes, smartest universities across the country. And they immediately looked at it and said, all right, this is definitely a product that we need to equip our guys with.
Yeah. And I think just before I came on, when I met Ziggy, our owner, they had taken the helmet and they took the top 3 scoring helmets to the Virginia Tech Helmet Lab. Okay, so the Virginia Tech Helmet Lab is like the gold standard. They also do bicycle helmets and snowboard helmets. So whatever you get a helmet that has a star rating, Virginia Tech probably is the company or the lab that tested it. So at the time, the top 3 scoring safety helmets, safety scores were Rydell Speed Flex, and the Schutt F7. So we went down there and we had Virginia Tech do a whole litany of tests on those helmets. And they do it in a lab where they drop you probably see it almost like a hammer, and they drop it. And they do a front on hit, they do a side hit, they do the back hit, and they do what they call a boss, or like a glancing blow. And they score on the helmet what the impact is. So we had the baseline for those 3 helmets. And then we took our shell. This is one of our shells right here. We actually work with NC State. Ike Iguanadu, who played there, is one of our main spokesmen. He plays for the Carolina Panthers now. He's the left tackle. So this is a shell that we wore. So we put our shell. I'll go back and show you more about the technology in the shell in a minute. But we put it on the helmets, and then we did a test score, all 3. And we reduced the risk of concussion on all 3 by 77%. So if you were to basically the lowest scoring concussion is basically the head on. Usually I'm going to tackle Derek. I see Derek. We figure out, we move our head, we miss, right? The highest scoring concussion is, I call it Tua. My son's a Dolphin fan, right? The head to the back.
Back of the head, right? And how many times do you see that? Yep. How many times do you see it? And people don't understand, like, that bounce off the turf, that's on that is the one that, quote unquote, rings your bell to a whole nother level, right? It's not the hit that most people assume is the hit that gives you the concussion. It's not really, for the most part, the head on, because that's like one of the least hits you make in a game anyway, right? It's
the mountain ram's goodness doesn't really happen in football. Right.
or a glance from the side, like when you're not expecting something, like those are the ones that really kind of jack you, and it's like, whoa, like
And especially youth, because they're not great tacklers. Or I'm 87 and I'm tackling a kid 115. I whip him over my hip. You know, I do a hip drag or a hip toss, and the
right.
kid goes back and hits his helmet on the ground. So our shell reduced the risk of concussion on the back hit 80%. You're never going to eliminate concussions. They're going to
No,
happen.
it's
But
just
you
part
can
of the game.
reduce the risk. So the score of a concussion reduced 80% with our shell. 65% on the side and 48 on the glancing blow. I'm holding Derek up. Schuman comes in on the side, you know, glances him a little bit, tries to clean his clock, maybe misses him, but glances him. So we've reduced all those scores. So when Virginia Tech, our boss was down there, and he was down there with Carlos Bradley, who's one of our other co-owners. He played for the San Diego Chargers during the Fouts era, right? So he was out there playing with Fred Dean and Chuck Muncie and those guys. Great guy. And Virginia Tech did the score, and they called and said, "Hey, we want to order 140." He's like, "Well, we haven't got the scores yet." He's like, no, we got the scores.
We have I'm staring at them right now.
We know. So Virginia Tech bought 140 for their team. They've been a customer since. They constantly buy new. Their director of sports science on our website gives a great video saying it's one of the best, if not the best, concussion product he's ever had. And that kind of like led to like, okay, then NC State, because trainers are like coaches, and they start talking, and then we've really started to explode. When I can walk in to talk to a coach, or even more importantly, when I can walk in and talk to a youth league board directors, you got like 7 or 8 mom and dads running the league, and I can give them the data, it's kind of like it's a done deal. They just got the numbers. The numbers speak for themselves.
Compare it to Guardians. So like I've seen the Guardians, like our youth league, for example, has Guardians, right?
Yep.
And AYF now said they said they always could, but coaches really didn't know it, that you could wear the soft shell in games actually if you want to. So, right. Which is great. Most people don't, but but the option is obviously a good thing to have, right? So if a parent wants to have their kid wear it, they can. And obviously we'll tell our players that, it's up to the parents, but as far as like, what's the difference in dissipation of those forces between the two? Because one of the questions I used to have on the Guardian, I still have that question about it, is that when someone gets hit on it, does the fact that the helmets are designed to slide off, right? And when you hit on a Guardian, does it maintain contact time longer, right? So
almost like it sticks to it, right, Dave? It's kind of like what you're saying, like it rather than get the hit and slide off, right? Correct. Does it hit the Guardian and now just keep going?
Yeah. So the extra time staying on the helmet, does that actually kind of either neutralize or maybe even does it counterbalance the fact of the benefit of the dissipation of it? And so that's what my question is, first of all, on those kind of helmets, but with your helmet like this, because it's designed differently with your stuff, that you could still, looks like it can still slide too, mm-hmm. right? So you get the dissipation plus the fact that it still slides like the helmet does, so you don't maintain that contact. Am I off base, or is there something to it?
No, you're 100% right. And like I said, I'm not disparaging. It's awesome you're doing stuff for your kids, and I'm not going to disparage any other
right
products. We our numbers outscore them at the Virginia Tech Helmet Lab in a great majority. Maybe on a smaller scale where the kids are 60 and they're not bringing such force.
Right.
Every year our growth percentages grow comparatively to those because they're more physical.
Right.
I have coached with the Guardian. I have had, that friction a little bit, maybe a little stinger from it. Our helmet here is.
They're also heavy. They're a little heavy.
They are heavy. They do move a little bit. The things break and they can get water sloggy and move a little bit. So this is made of 14 different chemical polymers. Okay. And it's if you touch it, it's soft in the sense like you can bend a little bit.
I've touched the product. It's definitely lighter than you would think, Dave. Like if you think it's like grabbing a helmet and you're like, oh my god, now I'm putting something on top of it. It's not really like that. I mean, it's pretty much like I said, it is not really as heavy as like it kind of looks. Like you're literally looking like you're doubling up on the helmet, and that's really not what you're doing. I don't even think it, like if I held a Guardian and held one of these, very comparable in like weight distribution, like 100%. Like the product itself it's not like you're adding another helmet on top of a helmet.
So this is right. So if you look inside, we mark what these are. This is an extra large. This weighs 16 ounces, but a medium and a large will weigh 14 ounces, so less than a pound. All right. And our focus, Dave, to your point, is this has to be slick. Ours is slick. So we work very hard on the friction coefficient to make sure that these are basically like a helmet. Our paint is actually car paint because, like I said, so it has flexion and give, so it doesn't chip. Right. Like you helmet, you chip and Kobe comes off and he's all busted up his helmet.
Right.
This doesn't chip. And I say it's like if you back into your kid's basketball net in your driveway, you dent your fender, but it doesn't chip the paint, it gives. That's what this does also. And that also makes it very slick. So you're right. This is something we do. If this comes out and one come out, if it were to come out tackified, it wouldn't go out. It's very slick.
Very cool.
So it can dissipate force. And like I said, this one here, this, as you can see, it has 4 spring-loaded points in the front. So you go right over the helmet, and then it connects. And then this is where like the name of the company of the helmet would show, so they can still get, Rydell or Shet will still show there on the face mask.
They still get their marketing.
Right. And then this is a shut. This connects in the back. And each one is depending on the helmet. For us, for the shut, connects on the back. So it's right there. You pull it, you turn it, it goes right on there. And it connects to the shell. The big difference between the Guardian and ours is we're game day ready.
Right.
So you put this on day one, you put your decal on this, and then you wear it. And I always say, like, why am I buying a concussion product and then taking it off on the most violent day?
Right.
I go, Dave and Derek are going to practice. I go, Derek, why are you going against Dave? You're 4 inches and 30 pounds heavier. Go against Jimmy. But on Saturday, you can't control
I'm going against Jimmy.
Right? So Jimmy's going to have to learn. Dave's going to have to learn. Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So this stays on. At the end of the season, when you turn your stuff in for reconditioning, the reconditioner is going to charge you $10 to peel off your decals and your stripe, and then he's going to charge you $20 to $30 to paint your helmet again, whatever that price would be. Our product does not have to be reconditioned. You take it, you wipe it down with a damp cloth or alcohol rub to get maybe a mark from someone else's helmet off of it, and then you store it. So then when you send your helmet out to reconditioning, it doesn't have to be repainted.
Right.
So you're saving, whatever your you pay on it, you're saving $30 to $40 a year. The average lifespan for high school is 3 to 4, probably 4 to 5. We don't try to oversell. We do have leagues where kids have worn it for 6 years yet in the same shell. So you actually save on the back end from it also.
That's incredible.
That's something that definitely a lot of coaches would love to know. Like, hey, in the long run, I'm going to save this because I'm not having to repaint 50 helmets that have been chipped up all year because, my Guardians because, the product right here does that for itself. Right.
And we do a custom color match. So if you're going to order and your helmet's maroon, we actually, is it standard maroon? Yeah, it's standard. Like we get it painted by Rydell. And we have that color. We go. You're like, oh, we're maroon, but we have like gold flakes. So we kind of look like Minnesota. We bring it in. Our painters do a custom color match to your helmet. So when you put this on, you can't tell the difference.
I think that's cool too.
Yeah,
and the other thing that I noticed too, right? Like when we're talking about when this, like, the original, where this all came from, right? Like you could definitely 100% tell that player was wearing something else on top of it.
Right.
To be honest, Dave, like Mount Olive had these on last season, And I had no idea until like post game when coach was like, "Hey man, did you see Mount Olive? Like they wore the Safr helmets today." And I was like, "Are you serious?" Like you can barely even tell that extra product is on there. Not to mention when you custom match the paint and then all your decals are the same, which still allows you to do your decals, right? Like if you're wearing a Guardian, and I'm not downplaying any other products by any means, but you can't add your stripe. You can't put your logo on the side, right? Like you can't all your
The kids
helmet
like to have
awards.
their stickers on the back.
You
They
can't
like,
have your helmet awards, right? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not going to happen. So now you have a product that can do that.
To your guys' point, I'll bring it up. That helmet behind me has it on.
Yeah,
So
you can't like.
people look at it, they're like, "Coach, do you have it with it on?" I'm like, "Yeah, the one behind me." They're like, "What?" So if I reach back here,
Oh, that one right there has it on.
this one
Oh,
right here has
look
it
at-
on.
You can barely tell, Dave, right?
You can barely tell. If you look here, right,
There's the hooks.
this is the helmet and this is the shell.
Yep.
And we do a custom match. So like it's helmet. This is a Rydell Speed Flex. We match the vents. So the vents. So vents the same way, right? It connects underneath here. You can
And
barely
Rydell
see.
still gets their shine.
Yeah,
can my son be your guinea pig for my team?
you got it, buddy.
and then I'll bring it to and Derek knows him too, but because his son plays with our club. But the guy who's the head of my AYF organization in Middletown, a big one, it's a very big one.
Yes.
And
yeah, I would say it's comparable to Mount Olive's.
Yeah. I mean, like we're I'm not on the board or anything like that because I just coach, but
thank God.
His son plays in our he runs one of our club teams, in the off season, and he's great, and he'll listen. So, and like I said, like we're outfitted right now. I think every single helmet Guardian. So, but there's no he lets you wear whatever you want, but we have for me, that's to me would be a better product. And I've had my child wore a Guardian, and I could tell you the hardest things with the Guardian, right, is every practice. This is practice, not even talking about game. Okay, every practice the thing pops off. Every practice for some kids, you know what I mean? For what some kids it doesn't come off at all, right? It fits good with their helmet, right? Mm-hmm. Some kids it pops off, and what happens is we're all spending our time putting the Guardian as coaches. We spend the first 5 to 10 minutes of practice
adjusting.
Listen, with 9-year-olds, you're doing their chin straps too, right? So that's 5 minutes on their chin straps, 5 minutes on their Guardians. You know what I mean?
You've been there, Coach Crave. You've been there.
You know that. Yeah. So it's frustrating because if you have something that just pops right on now
and stays on,
it stays on. And let's say once in a blue moon, there's an issue, right? It's way different than I'm talking every single practice. Plus, kids forget them. So that's the other thing. Like they forget them, and when they forget them, like we're always obviously you're gonna let them practice, right? But you're in a bind because we're all supposed to be wearing them in practice at least. And then here's 4 kids over here now, and if you look around the organization, it's the same thing. Like everybody has some kid here forgot it, this kid over here. Once they're on, it's so much easier from a coach's standpoint. And that's not even talking about the fact that what your scores are as far as concussion, all that stuff is better. But I'm just talking about the ease of use. Like that's what I look for. Like the last thing you want to do is always don't unstrap the Guardian, because the kids want to unstrap it when they're doing practice too, because it's heavy, right? It's a little bit heavier, and when they can take it off, they know they're like, oh, I'm gonna go faster, So I'm like, keep it on, It's so you're constantly dealing with that kind of stuff, and then when you play, what your other point about playing in a game, right? Yours is game ready, which is the other thing that I like is the fact that. Okay, so now all the kids take the Guardians off for the games, right?
Right.
For the most part. And
when you need them the most.
Get them. That's where they lose them, because that's when it goes off. I like in the Guardian to in flag football, Derek, what's the thing that everybody always forgets in flag football when they come to the game?
Do you have extra flags?
Flags, right,
Excuse me.
right.
Like,
Because the second they take their flag off when they
it's
get
like,
the
did you
car,
forget your helmet? Like, what do we?
Right.
Well, I'm saying that's just how kids are, right? You know, like
It is smart, yeah. 100%.
that's just how kids are.
Listen,
The flag's off, they
I
throw
deal
it.
with it with my high school guys, right? My high school guys, it's the same thing. Bro, like you have a locker. What?
Yeah, so it's great. You put it on. It takes after the first one. You okay. We give you an attachment. It basically looks like a crochet hook, and you just slide it, like you put it on, you put it forward. You go to the face mask, you grab and twist. It takes about 15 to 20 seconds to put it on.
Yeah.
After you do it a few times, and like I said, it's on all year, and then you take it off after the last practice, you just take it off.
Rub it down and good to go.
Right, you can see it's right there, and you can't even tell.
And I also think the other thing, Coach, the other thing that I like is
that's
that
it right there with it on.
That's it with it on. This has it on. If you can see,
I can barely see it. I see it right
this
there.
little rim right here is where this is it, and then this is the real helmet. If I turn it this way, let me get on the camera correctly. I'm sorry. This bottom piece is the helmet, and this line is
because there's your chin strap, right? Like, bam, there's your buckle.
So you can't even see it. Its attachment is this little pin right here in the ear hole, so you can't even see it.
It's like a little hook.
Even though the Flex doesn't have a vent here, it has a cutout, and so we mock the cutout, so it looks exactly like the shell underneath it.
Well, that was the other point that I was going to bring up that I love about it is that it is very much customized and individualized for helmets. So
right.
every model helmet has a shell that's custom fit for it, right? So like you said, that look, it doesn't look awkward or whatever because it's literally being custom fit to the exact helmet model that's on your child's or whoever's player's head.
We ask you for inventory, other products, you're like, oh, we need 120. No, we get a breakdown. We have 50 speed flexes. Of that, we need 25 in medium, we need 10 in large, we need 5 XL, we have shut F7s, I need 23 mediums, so we are a make and model match. There are some that do a little crossover, right? If you have a Vengeance, our shut will go on the Vengeance, so we don't cover that over, but it's a make and model match. So like you said, it's a complete replication, and every year we try to tweak it to make sure it stays consistent.
Really, really incredible product. I mean, it seems so simple because I remember the Kelso.
You're like, duh. Like, why didn't we do this? Like, here we are watching a guy back in I don't know what year he played. Maybe like 94. I don't know. Like, to me, that's a long time ago. But through all of this, right? And we always talk about look, we've seen, the game of football itself change, right? Like, the physicality of it has somewhat been taken away we teach tackling so much differently than we teach, than it used to be taught, right? So now you see these products and we're already making the game safer, but now you add another product that only increases that safety level. I really think, Dave, we had this discussion, we're watching flag football on ESPN. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the way it's kind of leaning in terms of, hey, everybody should do this stuff. Now, if anything that can benefit tackle football, right, with, the safety aspect to continue to keep that physicality in the game, any product I am all for. We've just seen the game change so much, right? I mean, Dave, you're at the youth level, I see some of these programs, right? Like my cousins, when they first start playing, they're in full gear, but they have flags on and they have Guardians on, right? They're out there. They literally look like Michelin Men, like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters, running around full gear, but they're pulling flags, right? So I just think any product that can aid us to keep the physicality in the game but make it safer, a positive.
I say this, and from coaching too, and in New Jersey, the 2 hours of hitting during the week at high school level, we're doing less hitting. We're doing more thud. We're doing more technique, more tackling drills. Fantastic. but because we're not hitting as much, when we are hitting, and you instinctively, your motor runs higher when you know you're going to get hit. So we're still like, we're getting hit and we're not prepared because we never really practice that all the time, and for good or bad. So when you are taking, I'm going 75% most week, and then I take that thing off to go 100%. It never really made sense to me. So when I saw this at Game Day Ready, he hasn't hit much. He came from flagons up till 6th grade. This is his first time in pads. He's a little bit more tentative. The game moves a hell of a lot faster those first couple of weeks, just like a rookie going into the NFL camp. To protect that head on game day is just, it's paramount.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest difference, because the helmets that are being made aren't everything they're doing. None of it is changing dramatically the concussion situation. What's changing it is how we tackle. What's changing it is products like yours. What's changing it is rule changes, right? And so this allows us to help the helmet, which is a big deal. But yeah, I think you nailed it on the head with tackling too. So that becomes the crazy cycle that you get into. Like, you don't tackle enough people. They don't, because they don't want to tackle because they feel the helmets aren't protecting enough, and then you go into a game or you're wearing a Guardian, and then now all of a sudden the first time you get hit with a helmet that does slide, you're like, whoa.
It's like Looney Tunes, right? It's like Looney Tunes, and the birds are flying around your head, and you're kind of like, why is everything in slow-mo? And why is everybody talking slow?
And when the helmet connects to the shell connects to the helmet, and it hooks, those springs, there's an ever so slight, if I were to, you won't see it, but when I pull it, there's an ever so slight give. Just a couple centimeter, a centimeter if that, and that hit is allowed. Boom, it throws that force, it dissipates that force off, it keeps it out of the shell. And so those things are double, they keep the tension to keep it on, but also there is a ever so slight movement which helps dissipate the force.
Which is exactly like how the brain itself works, right? Because, the brain is surrounded by fluid and it moves. So that's what you're trying to dissipate across, is that brain like smashing through that fluid and hitting your skull. That's where the concussion is caused. Now, if you can dissipate that impact through the shell, it doesn't even get to that part of where the brain is bouncing off of anything, right? So ultimately, that's kind of like where it's at. But like you said, Dave, I think that's like the craziest thing too, is right. Like you, all week you practice with a Guardian, you do this. You, like Coach said, you're limited in tackling live, right, or thud. Like, nobody's going out there and doing Oklahoma drill in practice anymore. Nobody's going out there and just, okay, guys, lay on your backs, helmet to helmet, get up and smash into each other. Like, that doesn't like coaches that are doing that, like, we got problems, right? Like, you just can't do that anymore. That's not the game, right? So the product itself, like, can just aid in that whole. Now, all right, you're doing this, you have it on all week, you're doing every facet of the game with it on, and now game day, here we go. We just transitioned to what we've been doing. It's not, I got to take my Guardian off, or it's not, I did something all week, now I'm not doing it in a game. Like, would you just throw plays in there, like, you know what I mean, on Sunday or Saturday without having practiced them? Like, it seems like common sense, but at the same time, the fact that we have to tell people, or like bring this up, that like, hey, this is a product you can use all the time. Like, I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, the cost of not doing it is greater than probably the cost of getting it. So, the helmet and the ability to wear it on game day as you would in practice, to me, is like a big thing, because that is a question that comes up currently. Like, why don't we wear these also on game day, right? And
like, I'm sure a parent is asking.
You can, by the way, you can now. You can, but with the Guard. But the issue is, and just having lived it, the issue is, and this is how coaches think, and this is how players more, even at 9 and 10. No, it's okay. I don't know if the young kids know about it slowing them down, but But I think the young kids think they don't want to have to come out of play because their guardian pops off, which is 5 plays. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Well,
really?
if the clips you get hit,
That's
the
a
clips
series.
go off, and then you have to go off. Okay, it could be a couple plays before
Right.
coach gets it on,
Yeah.
and make sure it's right. It's fit perfectly. So players, even at young ages, they don't want to deal with it. Because they're used to dealing with it in practice, right? So that's the thing I do really like about the product. And I think the listen, bottom line is the more force you can reduce on the hit, the better it is, because it's just a multiplier effect. The number of hits you get over the course of a lifetime, if you're getting 77% less force on it, multiply that over thousands and thousands of hits, and it kind of it does the math for you. And maybe we're not talking about the same things that we're talking about in tackle right now, because my belief as someone who's played, obviously, in Derek and you have coach as well, played football, and you hear a lot of the stories, but the stories that come from the top, meaning the NFL, like this guy had this thing with CT or whatever, and when you see that, people get scared on the lower levels, but a lot of times they don't realize, and I bring this up all the time, like, Junior Seau did play 20 years in the NFL, so I mean, my whole career, I played all the way through college, right, till I was 23. My whole career as a youth athlete all the way through to college was 14 years. He played 20 years just in the NFL, the highest level. You kind of have to understand at that point at the NFL level,
like
the longer you're playing, especially a position like linebacker, there are going to be increased risk. Right now, the great thing about what you have is now maybe someone like a Junior Seau can play the 14 years from youth all the way through to college, and then somehow play 20 years, 34 years of playing football, and not have some of the issues that he had, right? Or any player. And the NFL has done a great job of, I think, of, at first it was very hard for me, and I'm sure for a lot of coaches, because it was getting pushed down, and you want to teach tackling, and you're thinking, okay, they have to know how to tackle a certain way, because when you get in the game, the running back is not going to slow down for you. The wide receiver is not going to slow down for you. But now you have to tackle slightly differently, which may not bring as much force, which may be more dangerous to the defensive player, right? So at first we were always, I was very frustrated with all of that, right? I always my theory was always, if you play a long time in the NFL, probably things are going to happen, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast. But scaring the people all the way at the younger levels of it, for something that more than likely is not going to happen. But that's what's great about what you're doing. Now you're saying, hey, listen, not only really the truth is, unless you go play a long time in the NFL, you're probably going to be in a decent situation. Now we're reducing 80% of the force. So if we do things correctly and we teach tackling correctly, we teach the game correctly, other than freak accidents, which none of us can control.
Been there.
Yeah, you can't control those. But outside of freak accidents that can happen, if everything's done correctly, you could really dissipate so much more of the force, where they're not having, or they're having very, very small issues if they play all the way in the NFL for many years, and then no issues, hopefully, if they're kids that go all the way through college, and you could go through that whole entire career without any issues at all.
Anything.
That's kind of, to me, the great thing about it. That's, to me, the whole thing. And that's, I think, educationally, like, our tackle league at the youth level has grown tremendously. I think other youth programs are growing, but then there are other youth programs that are receding in different communities, right? And the more that products like what you have come out and get on people's heads, and they're comfortable and they're easy to use.
That's, I think, the key, Dave. Like you said, that like the simplicity of it, right? Like, that's what I think will, is what separates. You know what I'm saying? Because look, especially with you now being at the younger levels and things of that nature, like these things that take away time. This is why teams are out there practicing for 2.5 hours, Dave, because they're spending the first 30 minutes of practice buckling chin straps and
That's true.
adjusting guardians, right? Now, if parents understood this product limits that, and now we can actually get into the football part of it, like now you won't have to be home so late, mom. Like, it's all factors in.
So we if you go to the Safer, SAFR, no E, safersports.com on our website, we have a tremendous medical board. And you go on there, one guy, Dr. Craig Vandermeer, he's a neurological surgeon, and he's one of our biggest spokesmen. He's out of the Charlotte area. And just, he has a great video that he talks about the product and the reduction and, how it can help. His best friend is the doctor from Concussion, from the movie. And his name escapes me right now, but he's a big proponent of our product also, and just like all the things you talk about, just reducing the risk. That's all you can do, right? You can.
Right.
We
all know it's a violent game. Like,
yeah,
it is what it is. Like, it just, you're gonna.
How many times? Every guy in this, all three of us said, "Bite the ball." We all said, head to the ball. We all said all those death sentence terms as a coach now, right?
Pretty much.
And I remember when it came out, I was like, I went, I found online, I printed out, I watched the videos on Pete Carroll's hawk tackling when he went and did I made coaches watch it for like a month. And it was,
we did it, Dave. We did
to do that.
We switched to it.
Yeah. And this is just the next evolution when you take the coaching aspect and you take the equipment aspect. It's football is the best game. Everything I ever got out of it, the character, everything with my career, being a principal, everything I ever got out of my life basically came out of the values I learned out of football. And it's the hardest game, and it's difficult, but I learned a lot of tremendous things, and I want people to play it because when you play it, you learn a lot about yourself. So that's one of the things this products can do. Football has halved itself in the last 10 years. I think it was 9.7 million. Now there's only 5 million kids playing. But it's starting to tick up again. We got to get back to those numbers and get kids involved. And that's what I like about this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that youth, that's a huge thing, with everybody, we all used to teach bite the ball, and it's now head to the side, head up. Right. And so I have to reiterate it with my guys that they're like, well, what's the difference?
You're like, whoa,
I said, the difference, if you were to look at it, the difference is not really that great. It's the mindset of head up and away from the ball carrier, right? So when you bite the ball or head on the ball, sometimes as a kid coming in, the ball could be in the middle of the chest, right? So when you teach that, now their head's coming right down the middle. Now listen, when I played, like my linebacker coach was one of the great linebacker coaches in college football.
You had a good one.
Yeah, Vernon Hargraves. Like we were there. Our head was up. We were right in the middle of the chest. This was back in the 90s, and I can emphatically tell you it helped me get guys down, right? But but it's it's a situation where you want the kids to be able. You could tackle almost as well if you practice it by getting the head to the side and head up, and the kids it's very easy teaching point too. So that's the other thing. But I could tell you, I'm constantly like when the first day they're like I was teaching them bite the ball. I'm like head to the side, head up, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard for them who probably were taught that way. Obviously, I mean, you graduated in the 80s in high school. I started in the 80s when I entered high school, and it was a totally different world. I remember doing what Derek just said, head to head. Okay. Yeah. And I remember and I think I might have told Derek this once, my senior year, we did head to head, laying on your back. And I was a Division I football going to be a Division I football player, and all the guys on my team had to tackle me, and they wouldn't end the drill until someone got me down.
Right.
Okay? They wouldn't end drill. Finally, like the
30 reps in.
Honestly, I just fell down.
Get out of here.
You're like, you know what, guys? I'm not doing this anymore.
End this, right? But I was physically bigger than most of these kids, so it wasn't anything that they were doing wrong.
Right.
But I think about how discouraging that had to be. Like, like for kids, like it's like, I mean, why would a freshman has to try to tackle me? Like, come on, that's ridiculous. But that's how it was. Like I remember whenever he cheered when they got me down, they weren't cheering because he got me down. They were cheering
because the drill was over.
The drill was over. Thank God it was over. This stupid drill, and I didn't like it either, because I'll tell you this, carrying the ball, I'm lowering my shoulder. Someone was making contact with my helmet over and over and over again. I mean, they were thinking it was bad because I would get by them. I was thinking I got to go again because I keep banging my head against these people over and over and over again, And that's the thing that's great about what's coming out. That part's changing in football. Right. I do believe, just like Derek, that there has to be like a middle ground in how you teach tackle, so there's enough contact so we're ready for game day.
Yeah.
I think that that product, Safr Sports product, those kind of products are the key to being able to make that happen, because things that don't pop off, things that don't have to be adjusted all the time, that gets athletes, parents, and coaches on board, and administrators on board, that were like, okay, you could do a little more of this. Mm-hmm. I think, and we could prepare more, because I'm sure that's the number one complaint of coaches. We don't tackle enough. Then I go into game day, and mom and dad are mad because my son can't tackle very well,
or he gets hurt tackling.
Yeah,
I think that the hardest thing about football, right, is you only play one game a week, right? So that's what separates it. You practice way more than you play. So the idea of what you need to, in my eyes, is practices need to be as close to game situations as possible to mimic that for the guys. That, what do we always say, right? Like, hey, who can play when the lights are on? Well, right. How do I turn the lights on Monday through Thursday? So Friday night, it's not like this, wada, oh my goodness, what is this situation, right? The only thing that creates that comfort level on game day is mimicking as close to game day during practices as I can. If all of a sudden the main aspect of football, which is tackling and physicality, you don't do for 4 days during the week, and now all of a sudden I'm asking you as a player to flip a switch on Friday night and go run through his chest or do some of the, okay, I need to just do whatever I can to get this guy down. Whereas if we had a little bit more time to tackle in practice, now, okay, I know what it's like when this happens, right? Or I've just done it so much that my muscle memory creates that bridge to game day.
Yeah, it's a different world, but you're right. We're just, we drills and drills and drills, but there is something to be said for game speed, right? Just like they say in basketball, like playoff, different level, right? There aren't fast breaks. There aren't these. Everyone's got to grind to half court. Football's the same way. There's another level of speed and intensity that happens. It's very hard to replicate. So.
And what I realized coaching youth football for the first time last year, and now this is my second year doing it, I'm telling you, what I realized is the kids love tackle football. The kids that are playing, they absolutely love it. Yeah. And, all these kids that I coach, they play multiple sports. Mm-hmm. But I could tell you their excitement level when they come to football practice. And we forget as adults how much – we forget as adults, I try to think back to when I was a kid, you know what? When I was a kid, I'm not talking about when I was in college or even as I was getting older in high school. But when I'm talking about when I was a youth football player, how much fun it was to go out and play football. It was a unique thing. You didn't do it in any other time period, right?
That's it, right.
and
That's
you did
it.
it for this short window of time.
Very
You
short
played
window.
each year. It really was great because now you play basketball. You know, my son plays basketball like
Year
year round.
round.
You know, like
Yeah.
you can play baseball year round. You can play almost all your sports year round. You can play flag football year round. You can play 7-on-7 year round.
Yeah.
But
Not the same,
tackle
right?
football is a
Boom.
specific tight window, and you can't believe how much they love it. Like I'm always amazed at how excited. Like they'll go work to the bone, and they'll love it. They'll love it because football is so unique. Football is unique. There's one ball. You're able to tackle players. There's a million things going on in one play, and when they actually start doing it, the majority of kids are like, wow, this is unbelievable because there's no other sport that has all these things going on
Not even
in the
close.
middle of a game.
I agree. And that's why if we can put a product on kids where mom and dad feel they're safe and the kid has the enthusiasm to do it, let's get them out there. Let's let them play. That's it. That's what it's all about.
No doubt about it. Jim, it's been awesome having you on.
Appreciate it. It was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot.
Appreciate it, Coach. Always, buddy.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks, buddy.
Changing the game in the right way, which is the most important thing, and it's great. You got a good post-retirement gig right away.
Living that retirement life, baby.
Continue to live the dream.
Life. That's it. Shorts on the bottom right now.
Listen, we just gotta get him. We just gotta get him. We just gotta get him down to. We just gotta get him to Central Jersey.
That's it, buddy. You got it, man.
That's it. Drink it a hand, relax, and enjoy life.
Loving it. Awesome.
No doubt. Well, Coach, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed it. Anytime.
Have a great day, Coach.
Thanks, buddy.
Too,
Talk
guys.
to you soon.
Have a good one, man.
All right, man.
Bye. That was great. That was fantastic.
He always gets overlooked, dude. Like, he was a hell of a coach, bro. Like we had Siraj on. That was Siraj's senior year. So Siraj Ziad, who's obviously Mr. Mount Olive, right? Track guy, all this stuff. Right. That was his senior year. And Dave, when I tell you they won that game against Jefferson, they were the only game in the entire state that played their state championship that night. I mean, you want to talk, it's like, Mount Olive is out there, Morris County.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just telling you, they played this game. It was like the frozen tundra doesn't even do it justice. I mean, I'm serious. I remember my old man went to the game with everybody to watch Matt Sakis' team and really kind of put them. Obviously, that's why they wanted to play them. They shut down 4 wide receivers with a freaking frozen field going against the Veer, but it was awesome. And he transitioned into administration, right? What a great administrator in terms of being a vice principal. Then he was a middle school principal. Like, I love to see it now because he retires, and what is the first gig he gets into is something right back to football, right? And I think I just look, whether the product takes off or does not, I just love to see that there is something, like, people are looking to improve the game safety wise. And I know, like, for a guy like that to endorse something and work for it like that, like, I know it's not just like some gimmicky, whatever, let's make money type thing. Like, you can see that the data backs it up, right?
Oh yeah, I went on the website. It's very impressive. And I can tell you, what's interesting. I don't know the last time you've been out to Mount Olive, that whole area, they're building up so much.
So Dave,
I was out there a little while back. I couldn't believe it.
It's a very interesting area, right? Because you have a lot of dynamics to it. There's low income housing. There's high, there's high end,
but they're building
condos
a lot of
and
nice
all that
stuff.
Building. And one of the reasons is because of its location to Route 80, which is now like your pipeline to now that, post COVID, if I'm like, now I have to go back into the office, right? Like, I just hop on Route 80 and I'm right in the city in, however long, right? Plus it allows you those amenities of like, hey, like I said, there is low income housing, there's, high end housing, there's condos, there's every kind of variety you have. Not to mention, I'll go on, like, put me on record right here, like, Mount Olive has the best facilities in the state as a public school. I mean, campus itself is unfreaking believable. You know what I mean? Like, a stadium setting, you got turf and lights, jumbotron, they have an indoor, right? Like, and I'm talking like a legit indoor that's, monstrous.
Does the jumbotron do actually stream the game?
It does, like, instant replays and stuff. Like,
Does it really? Oh, wow.
Dave, it's on a different level, right? And but I also like, they invest back into the school itself, right? Academically, and like they really link academics with athletics, and they push
Right.
athletics, right? We
Right.
know some high schools are, athletics are important, and I'm not talking just football. Like it's across the board. Every sport is important. Majority of the students play something, right? Like they do, who's supporting who. It's just, look, it's a district that, they take their uniqueness in being where they are located geographically, and they use it to kind of push the school itself, because Mount Olive used to lose a lot of kids to Pope John, right? Or some other private school, Del Barton, that's right down the road. But they all link up, it all matches up when it comes to academics and whatnot. And why would I want to leave my hometown when I can use these facilities, and then ultimately play with my crew.
Yeah, no doubt. Very cool. All right,
Yeah.
we're off.